They used to laugh behind my back, calling me a glorified assistant or the girl who chased shiny dreams. I was the punchline at family dinners. But the day my private jet touched down 5 miles from their sleepy suburb right before their backyard barbecue, you should have seen their faces. Hi, I'm Elise Bennett. I'm 34 years old, founder and CEO of an international branding firm, and I used to be the disappointment of the Bennett family. The rebel. The one who couldn't just follow the plan. But the truth? The plan was never designed for me, and this is the story of how I proved them all wrong. Without ever raising my voice, I grew up in a family where success came with a checklist: doctor, lawyer, or finance. My older brother, David, was the golden child, straight-A student, Ivy League grad, now a plastic surgeon in Scottsdale. My sister Rachel followed suit with a law degree, a picture-perfect wedding, and a Pinterest-worthy home. Then there was me, creative, intuitive, and, for the longest time, lost. I didn't fit their mold, no matter how hard I tried to. So when I told my parents I wanted to work in branding and eventually start my own agency, they blinked like I'd said I was joining the circus. Brands? You mean like logos? My dad scoffed. That's not a real job, Elise. Rachel chuckled. So, you're going to help people pick fonts? I smiled, said nothing, and excused myself from the table. I'd heard it all before, but that night, something inside me cracked, not in defeat, but determination. I didn't need their validation. I just needed time. What they didn't know was I'd already started freelancing on the side for 6 months, branding small businesses, designing visual identities, and even doing social strategy for a boutique cafe chain. And my clients? They were thriving. While they were busy mocking me, I was building. Every night after my 9 to 5 marketing job, I worked until 2 a.m. on freelance projects. I read everything I could about brand psychology, design systems, and storytelling. I watched entire business models transform just by how we positioned them. I wasn't just choosing fonts, I was helping entrepreneurs find their voice. And in helping them find theirs, I found mine. And still, when I finally launched Aurora & Company, my boutique brand strategy agency, my parents called it a cute hobby. David asked me if I needed help building a resume just in case. Just in case what? I failed. I smiled. Thanks, but I think I've got this. Year 1 was brutal. I lived off ramen and skipped dinners just to pay my web hosting bills. But I never missed a deadline. I treated every client like they were my only client. By the end of that first year, I'd booked 6-figure revenue. By year 2, I had Fortune 500 companies reaching out, but still, to my family, I was invisible. At every gathering, I got the same old questions. Still doing your little thing? So, do you, post on Instagram all day? It hurt. But I learned to smile through it. What they didn't know was that I had just closed a global rebranding deal worth $2.40 million. You know what I remember most? The Christmas when Rachel's new marble kitchen was the highlight of every conversation. My parents were gushing, guests were clapping, and I was handed a folding chair in the corner. No one asked what I'd been working on. No one noticed the Chanel bag I'd bought myself, or cared, but I didn't show up for applause. I was there for Grandma Jean, the only one who ever believed in me. As she held my hand under the table, she whispered, "Your light's too big to stay hidden much longer." She had no idea how right she was. By the time I turned 32, I had a staff of 28, offices in LA and Berlin, and a roster of celebrity clients I couldn't name publicly because of NDAs. I was flying first class, giving talks at design summits, and managing campaigns that reshaped industries, but to the Bennetts, I was still just Elise. Then came the family barbecue. You know, the yearly affair with matching shirts, overcooked ribs, and an unspoken competition for who was doing the best. This year, Rachel was hosting. Of course. In her brand new backyard, complete with outdoor granite bar and custom-built fire pit. I almost didn't go. Until something told me, go big. You see, 2 weeks before the barbecue, I was offered a new contract with a luxury aviation brand. Part of the agreement included access to their private jet for a year, with the company branding painted discreetly on the tail. At first, I thought it was overkill. Then I remembered the barbecue. I didn't land in their backyard, but I did touch down at a private airstrip less than 5 miles away. When I called Rachel to ask if someone could pick me up, she paused. "Wait, where are you flying in from?" "London," I said casually. Client meeting ran long. There was a long silence. Then, "I guess I'll send David." When David saw the jet, his jaw tightened. I stepped off in oversized sunglasses, Hermes scarf, and Louboutin flats. I wasn't trying to show off, I was just me now. Confident. Clean. Done hiding. "You chartered this?" he asked, stunned. "Not exactly." I smiled. "It's mine." For the year. Part of a client deal. He didn't say much after that. Just drove in silence, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. As we pulled into Rachel's driveway, the barbecue was in full swing. Laughter, clinking glasses, and the faint sound of someone bragging about their mortgage refinance. They had no idea what was coming. I stepped into the backyard and felt every eye turn toward me. Someone dropped a plate. Rachel did a double take. My mother blinked like she was seeing me for the first time in years. "Elise," she said, her voice rising. "I'm here." I smiled. "Sorry I'm late." I handed her a bottle of vintage wine from my Berlin office and a small bag with Swiss chocolates, both picked up between layovers. "You came from Europe?" "Client work," I said. "It's been a busy month." That's when Rachel jumped in. "Oh, wow, must be nice to travel for free." I laughed. "Nothing's free, Rachel. Everything comes with a cost." Later, as everyone gathered around the fire pit, Uncle Jim asked what I was up to these days. Before I could speak, Rachel chimed in. "Elise does, like, marketing for small brands, right?" I tilted my head. "Well, not exactly." I pulled out my phone, opened my agency's client dashboard, and handed it to him. The logos of 6 multinational companies stared back, along with a 7-figure balance sheet. Jim whistled. "You built this?" "From the ground up," I said. 8 years and counting." The silence was deafening. My dad leaned in, eyebrows high. My mom clutched her wine glass, and that's when David, of all people, asked, "Why didn't you ever tell us?" I took a deep breath, because no one ever asked. You were all so sure I was failing, there was no space to share my wins. You could hear a pin drop. My mom started to speak, but I raised a hand gently. "It's okay," I said. I wasn't looking for applause. I just wanted peace. And now I have both. That's when my nephew ran up and tugged my sleeve. "Aunt Elise, is it true you have your own plane?" I smiled and knelt beside him. "Not mine forever. Just for a while. But yes, I fly for work." "Can I see it someday?" "Absolutely," I said. "You can even fly in it." That night, as the barbecue wound down and relatives slowly trickled out, my dad walked up to me. For once, no judgment in his eyes. Just curiosity. "You really did all this yourself?" "Yes," I said simply. "No one handed it to me." He nodded slowly. "I may not have understood your path, Elise, but I'm proud of you." It was the first time I'd ever heard those words. And while part of me wished he'd said them sooner, another part of me knew I wouldn't have appreciated them back then. Sometimes, the long way around is where you build your strength. As I boarded the jet the next morning, sipping coffee in the leather cabin, I looked out over the sleepy town that once made me feel so small. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't out to prove anything, but landing at that barbecue wasn't about ego, it was about visibility. I needed them to see me. Not the misfit, not the punchline, but the woman I'd become. A builder, a strategist, a quiet storm. If you're reading this and your family underestimates you, let me say this: you owe them nothing, but you owe yourself everything. You don't need their permission to be great. Keep going. Build in silence if you must, but one day, they'll hear your jet land, and that sound will say it all, because the girl they said would never be successful, she's just getting started. The jet lifted into the clouds. I sat back and allowed myself to feel the weight of the last 10 years. The loneliness. The self-doubt. The nights I cried silently because I couldn't figure out if I was building a business or just running from a legacy I never belonged to. And now, I wasn't running anymore. I was flying. But the truth is, success doesn't erase the past. It just reframes it. You learn to carry your scars like armor, not shame. You learn to forgive, not because they always deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Still, there were some moments I'd never forget. And one more was about to happen. The week after the barbecue, I got a call from my mother. A rare thing in itself. Her voice sounded cautious, like someone inching into unfamiliar territory. "Elise, your father and I were talking. We realized we never really asked what you do." I almost laughed, but I kept my tone even. "Well, it's not that complicated. I help brands discover who they are, what they stand for, and how to speak to the world." There was a pause. "Then, could you help your father's friend? He just opened a line of eco-cleaning products, and the packaging looks awful." I told him our daughter runs an international branding firm. Our daughter, the same people who once called it a hobby were now offering me referrals. Life really does come full circle. Though I agreed to take the client, not for their sake, but for mine. It was my way of closing the loop. I gave the man a discounted package, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to show kindness even when I hadn't always received it. The project went beautifully. His brand took off, landing shelf space in major retail stores. And when he gave a speech at a trade show, he credited Elise Bennett's genius Funny, isn't it? How strangers sometimes see you more clearly than your own family ever did. But then came the moment I didn't see coming. One that brought tears I hadn't shed in years. It was my birthday. I had just landed in Paris for a client summit when I got a text from Rachel. Just one line, "I owe you an apology." I stared at it, stunned. Then the second text came, "We mocked what we didn't understand. But I see it now. You weren't chasing dreams, you were building an empire." I sat in the back of my black car, driving past the Seine, and cried softly into my scarf. I never needed their praise. But I had longed for understanding. And now, slowly, it was arriving. My family hasn't magically changed overnight. They're still them, a traditional, structured, a little too obsessed with what the neighbors think. But I'm different now. I don't enter rooms seeking approval. I bring my own seat, my own voice, and yes, if needed, my own jet. What changed wasn't just my career. It was me. The girl who used to shrink herself to fit in finally realized she was never meant to blend. She was built to stand out, and standing out takes patience. It takes failing in private. It takes working in silence while others laugh, but when the time comes, your arrival will be loud. I now speak at universities, not just about branding, but about legacy. About finding the courage to write a new story when the old one tried to write you out. My company, Aurora and Company, now funds scholarships for girls in underserved communities who want to pursue design, storytelling, and marketing. Because somewhere out there is another Elise, sitting at a family dinner, being told her dreams are silly. She's not silly. She's just early. And one day, she'll fly to the SO. If you take one thing from my story, let it be this: let them laugh, let them doubt you, let them underestimate everything you are. Because when your jet lands, whether it's literal or symbolic, the sound of your success will echo louder than any insult they ever whispered. I'm Elise Bennett, once the family misfit, now the woman who turned doubt into fuel. And if you're on the edge of giving up, remember this: you're not lost, you're just in flight. Keep going. Your landing is going to be unforgettable. A few weeks after the Paris trip, something unexpected happened. My dad called me. Not texted. Not emailed. Called. "Hey, Elise," he said, his voice scratchy like he'd rehearsed what he was going to say. "Listen, your mother and we were wondering if you'd be willing to come speak at the Rotary Club next month. They're doing a spotlight on successful entrepreneurs." I sat frozen in my downtown LA office. I looked out at the skyline, the very one I used to stare at from a cheap apartment with a leaky faucet and a dream. "Me?" I asked carefully. "Yeah," he said. "You've built something real. It'd be good for them to hear it. And I think it'd be good for me too." I agreed. I didn't say yes, for him. I said yes, for the 23-year-old version of me who once cried in the bathroom because her father told her real jobs don't involve hashtags. That night, I practiced my speech in front of my team. My creative director, Sam, looked up from his notes and said, "You ever feel like you're living a double life?" I smiled. "I used to. Now I'm just closing the gap." When the Rotary event came, I wore a sleek navy pantsuit, understated jewelry, and confidence like a second skin. My father sat in the front row, straight-backed and stone-faced, the way he always was. But his eyes were softer than I remembered. I told the story of building Aurora and Company, the rejections, the ridicule, the ramen. I ended with this: I used to think success was about money. Now I know it's about freedom. Freedom to choose your path. Freedom to rewrite the story others tried to assign you. Freedom to fly, literally and figuratively. There was silence. Then applause. Then something I hadn't expected. My father stood up, and he clapped. After the event, he hugged me. It wasn't long. It wasn't tearful. But it was solid, strong, and real. "I'm proud of you, Elise," he said into my ear. "I just wish I'd understood you sooner." I nodded. I used to wish that too. Now I just hope I can help others feel understood sooner than I did. In the months that followed, my life didn't slow down, but it changed in subtle ways. Rachel invited me to coffee. David sent me an article about branding and wrote, "Thought of you." My mom, surprisingly, asked if she could share one of my keynote videos with her women's group at church. I didn't need their approval anymore. But I'll admit, it felt good to be seen. One moment sticks with me more than the rest. Grandma Jean. She wasn't well, her memory slipping, her body smaller than I remembered, but when I visited her at the assisted living center, she looked at me and said, "Didn't I tell you your light would outshine them all?" I knelt beside her and held her wrinkled hand. "You did, Grandma. You always believed in me before anyone else did." She smiled through cloudy eyes. "Because I saw you, even when you didn't see yourself." That moment stayed with me long after she was gone. It reminded me that sometimes, we just need one person to hold on to our potential until we can carry it ourselves. Today, Aurora and Company is more than a branding firm. It's a movement, a mission. We partner with women-led startups, minority-owned businesses, and dreamers who were told they work too much or are not enough. And I never forget what it felt like to be overlooked. So I make it my business to see people to ask the questions no one asked me to believe before the world gives them a reason to, because sometimes the greatest success isn't landing the jet, it's becoming the runway for others to take off. I get messages now, hundreds, thousands, from girls who say, my family never believed in me either. From women who whisper, I'm building in silence. But someday, I want to land like you did. To them I say, you will, and when you do, don't waste time trying to prove your worth. You never had to. Just show up, show out, and soar. And if no one claps when you arrive, clap for yourself, because success isn't about the audience, it's about knowing you built the stage. So yes, my family once said I'd never be successful, but now, when I land at the barbecue, they don't ask what I do anymore. They ask if I'm free to speak at the next alumni dinner. They ask if I'd consider mentoring their daughters. They ask how I knew it would all work out, and I tell them I didn't. I just never stopped building, even when no one else saw the blueprints. This is my story, not one of revenge, but of rise, and not one of proving them wrong, but of finally embracing that I was always right about who I was meant to be, and the next time my jet touches down near that sleepy little town, I won't be there to shock anyone. I'll be there to celebrate, because this time, they'll be waiting, arms open, eyes proud, and I'll walk off the runway not as the misfit, but as the map, for every woman who's still waiting for her landing.